The following episode contains scenes that some viewers may find disturbing and/or may not be suitable for younger audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello, and welcome to another season of American History Mysteries. I'm your host, Heidi Wagner, and I cannot wait to dive into some mysteries with you all. In this episode, we'll be learning about the escape of John Wilkes Booth.
Most of you may remember John Wilkes Booth from your history classes, but here's a little refresher. John Wilkes Booth was born on May 10, 1838 in Bel Air, Maryland. He was an actor with his brother and father in the Booth theatrical family. Booth was also a Confederate sympathizer during the Civil War. Booth is the most known for, on April 14, 1865, he assassinated President Abraham Lincoln in Ford's Theater with a shot to the back of the head. After he shot Lincoln, he jumped on the stage and said, "Sic semper tyrannis," the state motto of Virginia. All tyrannical leaders will be overthrown. To get away, Booth rode on horseback down Pennsylvania Avenue and 11th Street to the Navy Yard Bridge. He escaped the city by talking his way across the closed bridge. Meanwhile, 2,000 Union soldiers were on the hunt for Booth. While the soldiers were on the hunt, Booth met up with his co-conspirator David Herold in Maryland. The next day, Booth and Herold sought out Dr. Samuel Nutt, a local doctor and fellow conspirator, to treat Booth's broken leg. After many days, Booth and Herold ended up at Richard Garrett Farm near Port Royal, Virginia. Owners of the farm suspected they may be poor thieves, and then they were both locked into the barn. In the early morning hours on April 26th, detectives and Union soldiers of the 16th New York Cavalry arrived at Richard Garrett Farm. Under the direction of Lieutenant Edward Doherty, the soldiers lit the barn on fire to force Booth and Herold to come out. 21-year-old Herold surrendered and was pulled out of the barn. Despite the orders not to kill the assassin, Sergeant Boston Corbett fired one bullet that passed through Booth's neck, severing his spinal cord and paralyzing him from the neck down. Booth then died hours later.
You heard about the history, now let's get into the mystery.
In the early 1900s, many years after the case was closed, John Shoemaker, general councilman of the Department of the Army, wrote that if the Booth case was tried today, evidence would not hold up in court.
You may wonder why Shoemaker would think such things. Here is some information that did not make it to the Lincoln assassination trial, and part of what conspiracy theorists say is a government cover-up.
David Herold, the 21-year-old conspirator with Booth, or the other man in the Garrett barn, supposedly surrendered and ran out of the barn saying, "The other man is not Booth." But many have debunked this theory because Herold supposedly changed his testimony many times.
That makes a lot of sense to me. I wouldn't trust someone who would change their story a million times in a murder trial. But wait, there's more.
Lieutenant William C. Allens' widow said that he told her that the man that they pulled out of the barn had red hair, and Booth was known to have black jet hair, and that the government covered it up.
So the body must have not have been Booth's. But what happened to Booth? We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll learn more about Booth's escape.
What does it mean to be a war hawk?
It means allowing myself to dream big and think outside the box.
Pushing the limits of what I think is possible.
Seeing ideas through from start to finish.
Collaborating with professors and peers.
And seizing opportunities in the community to put my knowledge to use.
I'm studying abroad,
learning another language,
and listening to the stories of others.
I'm making lifelong friends and fearlessly sharing my gifts with the world.
As a Warhawk, I stay balanced,
take great care of myself,
and get out of my comfort zone.
I refuse to let the past determine my future.
And I'm taking confident steps in the direction of my dreams.
Sometimes it doesn't make sense.
And other times it couldn't be more exciting.
But I will keep my goals in mind
and never quit.
Because
that's the Warhawk way.
Video One Media Services provides accomplished students the opportunity to enhance their college experience by working with real-world clients. In addition, we provide clients local and affordable video options to better enhance their media needs. For more information on how Video One Media Services can help you with your next media project, email or call our office at 262-472-5659.
Welcome to Jitters Coffee House. Located on the first floor of the Wells Towers, Jitters is a student-run coffee lounge and offers a variety of coffee and ice cream-based drinks and is home to many entertaining programs, including live music, gamer trivia nights, and other performances. Coordinate your activity by emailing jitters@uww.edu. Jitters is completely run by volunteers who can earn service hours and even receive a free drink during their shift. Stop in tonight at Jitters Coffee House, where fun events and community come together.
The Department of Communication offers students the opportunity to explore the world through the faculty-led travel study program. The course consists of both in-class lecture and a 3-week travel component at the end of the semester.
You have a life that is insanely busy. You don't have to give up so much time to do a 3-week travel study, and you can compact a lot in 3 weeks.
The course is worth 3 credits and is open to all majors. The program features group travel with peers and faculty.
I think the benefit of traveling in a group like the travel study is there's always somebody there to experience new things with you, and you always have new friends to gain.
Travel Study offers a variety of travel destinations, including a trip to Ireland every other year. Develop new relationships, participate in enriching cultures, and experience personal growth while abroad.
With the Travel Study, it was so great being able to go to places and really experience the value that they can give to our own culture and just to me as a person.
For more information, please visit
Welcome back! Many conspiracy theorists believe John Wilkes Booth did not die in the early morning hours at the Garrett farm. They believe Booth died 40 years after. Let's dive into the most popular theory.
In 1877, in Ganbury, Texas, a lawyer named Phineas Bates was summoned to the bedside of a dying man named John St. Helen. What Bates didn't know was that St. Helen had a story to tell. St. Helen made a deathbed confession that he was John Wilkes Booth. Then St. Helen revealed that all the bridges were closed that night of the assassination, but he was given a password to cross. St. Helen also claimed when he was hiding in the back of a wagon Union soldiers were all about, he ran from the wagon and his papers fell out. Booth then sent an ally messenger to grab the papers. Then this man ended up at Garrett Barn and was killed. St. Helen survived the night and skipped town, drifting across the Wild West using various aliases.
But this is not the end of this crazy story.
In 1903, David E. George committed suicide with wine laced with strychnine in Enid, Oklahoma at Grand Avenue Hotel.
Wait, who is David? It all connects, I promise.
A local minister's wife claimed George made a confession about being John Wilkes Booth. George's death ran in the local paper. Bates recognized the man in the paper as John St. Helen. Bates then went down to Oklahoma, and because no one ever claimed the body, he got custody over it. And because Bates was so fascinated with this, he wrote a book in 1907 titled The Escape and Suicide of John Wilkes Booth, which publicly shared St. Helen's deathbed story. The body of George/St. Helen/Booth was a local tourist attraction, and then Bates decided to mummify the body.
Yep, you heard me, a mummified body.
Bates then rented the mummified body out for display. In 1920, William Evans, the carnival owner, was renting it, and it was transported on a train, and then it got into an accident. Then the body was kidnapped and then brought back to Evans. In 1923, Bates's widow gave the mummy to Evans.
Honestly, if I was her, I'd also give away the mummy too.
In 1931, 6 Chicago doctors examined the body and found 3 characteristics the body had similar to Booth. It had a scarred right eyebrow, a crushed right thumb, and a broken left leg. From 1937 to the 1950s, the mummy was traveling around with Jay Gould's $1 Million Circus. In the late 1970s, the mummy was last seen in the hands of a private collector. Everything resurfaced in 1992 when Unsolved Mysteries released an episode on the escape of John Wilkes Booth. Even the Booth family wanted to exhume Booth's body to do a DNA test, but the court denied the request.
So, are the courts hiding something? I hope you all learned something about the escape of John Wilkes Booth. Did Booth escape the Union soldiers or die in the Garrett barn, as history books claim? Thank you for watching. See you all next time on American History Mysteries.